Nashville Predators are back home after an extensive, exhausting 2-day road trip. We'll talk about how they can beat the Philadelphia Flyers at Bridgestone Arena tonight, plus a Tuesday edition of Plus Minus. We'll recap the highs and lows of the past week of Preds hockey on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day every single day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to start out with a special shout out to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys and we appreciate the support you give us each and every week. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at the Hockey News.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. On today's show, a special Tuesday edition of the Plus Minus. We'll look at the highs and lows of Nashville Predators hockey over the past week, including a role player for the Nashville Predators stepping up in a big way, potentially having a career best season, some lineup decisions that might go under the microscope, and another WTF moment from the NHL's Department of Player Safety. Yes, there's something else after yesterday's episode.
It's new.
It's new. We're not rehashing old stuff. There's something new to talk about.
Yep.
We'll get into all of that today, but first, some business to take care of. The Philadelphia Flyers are at Bridgestone Arena tonight. Flyers are a team that I would safely say is probably exceeding expectations this season with a 15-10-2 record. You're getting some good goaltending from Carter Hart right now. That is a big a bounce back story across the NHL, as well as some good contributions from some of the depth players on the Flyers team. This is definitely a team that I think Anna is kind of winning by just a bunch of good players up and down the lineup having, pretty solid years for their role.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels between the Flyers and the Predators season. I think you hit the nail on the head. They're really surprising some opponents. I don't think anybody factored in Nashville or Philadelphia as maybe being a challenging game necessarily. Both of them are quote unquote resetting, rebuilding, kind of looking to get back into contention. But I think what you've seen is there are enough quality pieces being put together by what I hope are probably very different head coaches, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Let's hope John Tortorella doesn't have a emotional connection to Andrew Brunette somewhere.
No. But they really are kind of walking out sort of parallel starts to the season where I think everybody wrote them off. Nobody was talking about them. You looked at their roster and thought, well, yeah, there's a couple decent players, but can they really produce and do enough to get some wins? And both teams have gotten wins against some impressive other opponents. So I think this is going to be a really interesting game for the Nashville Predators, not just big picture, but I also think Philadelphia is going to challenge Nashville and really test like how good are you at certain aspects of this game. So I'm excited to see how the Predators measure up and how they compete against Philadelphia. A couple things stacked against Nashville. I'm just going to say a couple things stacked against Nashville, but let's see how they do.
What's stacked against Nashville?
Look, if you look at the schedule, this is Nashville's fifth game in 7 days. Fifth game in 7 days. This is Philadelphia's third game
Yeah.
in 7 days.
I thought you were going like of course, like, Ryan O'Reilly is suspended for this game, or Philip Forsberg, of course.
Tim Peel is coming back to referee.
Yeah, Forsberg is going to be out, of course, for 4 weeks. And I'm like scrolling through my notes. I'm like, wait, did I just miss the wildest story of the NHL? Like, did I just miss some major Preds thing that didn't even come up in our like planning meeting or something?
No.
Okay.
But I really am a little bit concerned about the schedule because Philadelphia plays, if you watch this team, Philadelphia are a little bit cheaters. And not in like big picture, but they will cheat on plays to get breakaways. They are fast in transition. And I look at the Nashville Predators and their legs have to be a little jello from this past week. And you've got Philadelphia coming off of, this past week, they had a couple of days off in a row. Nashville hasn't had that since the middle of November. Yeah. So I think there, you really have to wonder, is fatigue going to be a factor? I hope not.
I love you calling them cheaters, and I know exactly what you mean too. It's just, it seems like they're kind of poised for the counterattack. It's almost a little bit, Anne, of, sort of the way that John Hines played very early in his Predators tenure, where it was kind of like, stay sound, and then just, kind of 3 forwards pushing forward in the defensive zone when they see, the puck get trapped. They'll say that about John Tortorella. Very smart about the way he kind of coaches players to take advantage of chances when they see them. Like he gives, I think he gives like forwards, defenders. It's like, if you see an opportunity where you can force a mistake, where you can force a counter, go for it. I think that's something the Flyers do extremely well. For me, and I think the story comes down to 2 players, 2 forwards, who I would just consider franchise forwards for each team at this point, having career best years. We talk about Filip Forsberg all the time. It's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit that he is on his career best projection.
Yeah.
Right now, of course, he had 84 points a couple of seasons ago. He now has 31 in 28, so he is on pace for above 90 right now. And he, of course, would be only the second Predator to top 90 points in a season if he's able to keep that pace up. And then you have Travis Konecny, tied for 6th in the NHL in goals right now, with 16 goals. Travis Konecny, who I don't know why, but it kind of stunned me to hear he's 26 years old, like just 26.
Yeah.
Just because he came into the Flyers lineup so young, it feels like he's been like their main player for like a decade and a half now.
Yes.
Like, it feels like he and Claude Giroux should be in the same sentence. Like, I don't know. It's just one of those like sort of, surprising things where it's like, he's only 26. I feel like I've talked about him for a full decade.
Yeah.
But Travis Konecny on his career best streak for goal scoring, and he has now scored 2 goals in back-to-back games. Yes. So that is somebody that the Predators are absolutely going to watch out for. Just like, the Flyers are going to have to watch out for Forsberg creating in their zone. It's easy where it's just, the 2 players to watch for either team just might be the 2 best players on the ice in this game, man.
Yeah. I also think keep an eye on special teams, which seems strange to say when you look at these 2 teams and where they rank in the league on special teams. Philadelphia, not terrific on the power play, not terrific. But here's where you need to watch them, and that is on the penalty kill. They have a very good penalty kill. And what they do on the penalty kill is they cheat. And I say that again in the big picture, not in a moral sense. But this is a team who loves to create chances. They love shorthanded chances, and they will capitalize on them as often as they can. They create, I think they have the most shorthanded chances, or tied for first with the most shorthanded chances in the league right now, because they are aggressive and they are not afraid to jump on a pass. So Nashville on the power play cannot have, every so often you see them kind of doing these lazy passes. You can't do that against the Flyers because you are going to leave Saros or Lankin and whoever starts. You're going to leave them hanging out there. So I think really watch execution on special teams as well. I think it's going to be interesting to see, and look, Nashville's gotten some shorthanded chances as well. So
yeah,
let's see how special teams plays out too. I think it's going to be an interesting aspect of the game tonight.
100%. 7:00 Central puck drop. So join us for that one. We'll, of course, have a full recap coming up tomorrow on the Locked On Predators podcast, but much more to get to today, a Tuesday edition of Plus Minus, because we had a Sunday game to recap on yesterday's show. So we'll go through the highs and lows of Predators hockey in the past week, including a couple of unexpected players on hot streaks at the moment. First, though, I want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Alex Ovechkin could break the NHL goal scoring record here, folks. The Vegas Golden Knights could become just the fourth team in the past 30 years to lift the Stanley Cup in back-to-back years. And the biggest one of all, you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Crosby, Ovechkin, Evgeny Malkin, or Nathan McKinnon will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more. So for today's game, you can pick how many saves is Juuse Saros going to have. You can pick how many goals you think Filip Forsberg or Travis Konecny will get in this game. To win that 100-time bet on Sleeper that we were talking about earlier, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Preds fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. Again, code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, Ann, let's get to a Tuesday edition of Plus Minus. You guys know what this segment is. We go through the past week of Predators hockey, give pluses to things working well for the Predators, minuses to things that we would like to rant and rave about. And start us off on a good note. What's a plus from the past week?
And of course, this is something we talked about on yesterday's episode as we recapped that Montreal game, but I think that it deserves its own plus. And I'm suspecting this is something that's going to be hopefully a repeated plus from now on. And that is the play of Juuse Saros. We've had to have some frank conversations here about Juuse Saros. We know he's a slow starter, but there have been a couple games and a couple goals that really kind of got you wondering, like, hey, what's happening with Saros? Friends, he is back. Juuse Saros is back. 4 wins in a row after being pulled from the Minnesota game. He has not lost a game since then. He's only let in 6 goals in his last 133 shots faced. He has a .956 save percentage in those 4 wins. And if you look at the game against Montreal, that game is a loss without Juuse Saros. That is straight up fact. That game is lost if not for Juuse Saros. And so when you look at a game like tonight against the Philadelphia Flyers, the Flyers have had some very close 1-goal games recently. Juuse Saros is that difference maker again for the Nashville Predators. So I want to give a shout out and a plus to Saros, because I know, there's been an adjustment period for him with this new system and with all of the changes in defense in front of him. Juuse Saros, you get the fattest plus of the week.
Yeah, and it's happening at a right time, too, because the Preds play, especially that road trip, was not, let's say, up to the standards that I think Andrew Brunette has wanted them to have. So I think the fact that Juuse Saros, as we said yesterday, is back, baby.
Come on.
I think that fact is going to help the Predators maybe scrape more points through some of these performances where they're, not – where they don't have their A game or whatever, however, you kind of want to phrase that.
Yes, he can cover a multitude of sins when he is on.
Correct.
As we saw Sunday night.
Correct. And I know we talked about this, the other day, but, I don't think it's a bad thing for the Nashville Predators to be scraping up points, especially this season for a multitude of reasons. And I'm giving a plus to a role player possibly may go down as one of the most underrated Predators of all time. And that is Mr. Snossus himself, Colton Sissons.
Yes.
Of course, had 2 goals the other night against Montreal. One of, the only Predators player to score in that game. 2 goals for him. He is quietly having the best season of his entire career. 9 goals, 6 assists in 28 games. That's good for 15 points. Remember, his career high is 30 points.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. And his career high in goals is 15. He is on pace to shatter both of those. He's at least a 40-point player this season if that pace continues up. And, beyond that, you look at Colton Sissons, and he has the most ice time this year of any season that he's had before. And this is a guy who's played some significant minutes and some significant roles for the Nashville Predators in past years. It's interesting because we look at a player like Colton Sissons going into the year, and we talked about his importance. We talked about him being like a jackknife and good defensively. Sort of handle a lot of, the assignment and, defensive responsibilities and stuff like that. But I think a lot of us were kind of like, okay, like he's not going to be like the herd line Colton Sissons where he's out there on, every offensive opportunity or XXX or, Andrew Brunette's got his style. He likes the players that he likes. And, maybe a defensive player like Colton Sissons isn't going to do well, yada, yada, yada. No, Colton Sissons has thrived.
Yes.
Andrew Brunette's version of the Nashville Predators. He's absolutely thrived. He does so many things well on both ends of the ice. I think because he's been used as sort of a bottom 6 forward in his career, we sort of maybe don't appreciate, I think, his awareness in the offensive zone. Like if you watch that rebound goal, which I think was the second goal against Montreal, you think, Colton Sissons was right place, right time. But watch him on that play. Watch how he, skates backwards, skates forward, kind of quickly adjusts where he's at on the ice based on where the puck is, based on where his teammates are going, based on what his teammates without the puck are doing. He is so smart at figuring out the best place to be based on the play in front of him, based on the way that's developing. Colton Sissons, I think, is finally starting to show a lot of his offensive upside, something that he hasn't really been able to do the past few years. And Colton Sissons is somebody so important to this Nashville Predators team in so many ways. So somebody that if he has a career year this year, like he's on track to, well-deserved.
Yes, absolutely agree. And it's so funny because when you talk about, think about a player on the Nashville Predators who is good defensively, who is great at developing plays and in dishing out passes. And you think about, hey, who is good on the penalty kill? Who is somebody who contributes to the power play? At first, you might think Ryan O'Reilly, but that's Colton Sissons. Colton Sissons is another version. He's a bottom 6 version of Ryan O'Reilly in that he is a jack of all trades. Like you said, this is somebody who contributes on so many levels for the Nashville Predators. And you also have to look back. You mentioned the herd line and you think, how much has playing with Colton Sissons helped Yakov Trennin's game?
For sure.
Would the Nashville Predators have gotten what they got for Tanner Jeannot if Tanner Jeannot had not been highlighted on a line with somebody and played with somebody like Colton Sissons? Like Colton Sissons, he is sneaky important to this team.
Also, Cole Smith, somebody that is, I think, fitting from playing with Colton Sissons as well. Anne.
Yes.
A minus.
I hate these, but let's talk about some things that are real, my friend. Just this past week, remember, it's a short time frame. We're not critical of the whole thing, but let's talk about top line production.
Okay.
Look, Forsberg and Nyquist and Ryan O'Reilly, one of the best, they are definitely one of the best top lines in the NHL when you look at, shots generated, chances generated, all that kind of thing. This week was a little bit of a drop off for them. In the last 5 games, the 3 of them have combined for 3 goals and 3 assists. Back in the week of November 19th through the 25th, just in 3 games, not 5 games, but just in 3 games, they combined for 6 goals and 6 assists. So a little bit of a drop off in production. Part of that is I think teams are very, very aware that this is the line you have to contain when you face them. But you almost hate, I don't want to see a drop off in production from this group, and so it's just something to kind of keep an eye on. I think they have fantastic chemistry. I'm not particularly concerned that this line isn't working anymore and Andrew Brunette's going to have to, adjust it. I think this is the top line you're going to see if they stay healthy at the end of it, end of the season. But just a little bit of a drop in production. So something to take note of. I hate to be critical because they've done so much, but just not quite connecting like they were a couple of weeks ago. So a little tiny bit of a minus.
Yeah, we'll see if that's a result of maybe just the Preds overall not playing their best hockey against Montreal and Toronto, right. Or maybe if there's something else going there. It's not funny because we're like, oh, that top line really hasn't been doing much. Filip Forsberg's still 5 points.
I know.
So
yeah. I mean, it's not like they're totally tanking here, folks, but it's just a little dip. Just a dip.
I've got a minus. I think it's also a minus Ann has that is worth diving into. Another clown show moment from Department of Player Safety, plus something Andrew Brunette did this week that I think deserves to be highlighted. That's coming up in just 1 second.
First, I want to let you know this episode's brought to you by our great friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, those are things that bring home the winning trophy in sports. It's also the things that keep your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, they have exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you are into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. They have over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. So you're always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers.
All right, Ann. Let's dive right into the latest from the NHL's Department of Player Safety, shall we?
We should.
We, of course, had a big rant yesterday about intent versus, actually what happens on the play. Mm-hmm. So we had a moment. This happened in the Ducks versus Winnipeg Jets game where there was a knee-to-knee hit on the Ducks, from the Ducks, Strome. I cannot remember if it was Ryan or Dylan, but one of the Stromes. So we'll just call him Strome on Kyle Connor, who, of course, is the NHL's fourth leading goal scorer right now, 2 behind the league leader. Anyway, best player in the Winnipeg Jets this year,
100%.
By far. Knee-to-knee hit. You could see, Strome, whichever one it was, his leg was out, unnatural position, hits Kyle Connor right in the knee. Kyle Connor sounds like he might be out for a while. Strome, of course, given 5 in a game. Then comes the latest from the NHL's Department of Player Safety, who looked at the play and deemed it. This was, let me pull up the actual tweet. This was according to Mike McIntyre, a really good Winnipeg Jets beat writer, said that there's no more supplemental discipline coming for Ryan Strome. We figured out the Strome. And it said that Strome had his foot planted rather than deliberately extended. They admitted it was a reckless play, but one that was not intentional, and decided to rule that the 5-minute major and game injection were both sufficient punishments. And your thoughts on this?
Such a slippery, stupid slope. I mean, can we just say that if you are going to call a play reckless, then you have to address that. Stop weighing intent for a couple of reasons. Number one, you can't always get it right.
Yeah.
Number two, I also think that unfairly targets players who may or may not have a reputation. And whether, that they deserve more scrutiny or not, I think then what it also does is eliminate players who don't have a previous history. And you can't do that either. The bottom line is, if there is a play that you want to get out of the NHL, start treating it like a play you want to get out of the NHL. You can't call something reckless and then say, but I don't think he meant to do it. It doesn't matter. If a reckless play is made, you have to address it. It just seems so strange to me that we're splitting the hairs that they are splitting. I don't get this.
100%. And I think that's the thing that just boggles my mind, is that we're looking at intent and not the end result.
Come on.
And it's just such this weird thing where it's just like we have to put everything under a microscope. It's almost like I hate to use it, but it's just like a trial almost, like where it's like we'll go through great lengths to try to defend the character of the person doing this and not paying attention to what actually happened. And look, like, if you're willing to say that was a reckless play, I don't think you should throw Ryan Strome out of the league. I don't think he needs to be, on the bench for 10 games or, anything like that. But it's, I can't remember if we used this point the other day, Ann, but it's like, if you're in a bar fight and you punch somebody and they stagger backwards and fall down the stairs, that's still manslaughter, and you still should be punished because your actions cause something. Your reckless actions cause something. It's not first-degree murder. You're not doing 25 to life, but you should get punished. And I think for some of these plays, like the Kaprizov play, like the Matthew Joseph play, like the Nick Cousins play, like the Ryan Strome play now, the fact that we have to stop and go frame by frame and be like, oh, well, you see, like, this person was actually looking in this direction. So we don't know if, the intent, we think he was doing this, and this was just a series of unfortunate events, blah, 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 blah. That's still, the end result is still a hit from behind. It is still a knee-on-knee hit. It is still a cross-check to the head. We have to start penalizing the end results. And yeah, you can take intent into effect when you're discussing how long the punishment is. Like, if your two-hand at somebody is different than trying to make a hockey play and wind up crunching a guy, head first into the boards. Like, I get it, but it's just like the fact that some of these are just, we're not going to do anything about them because we think the intent was this. That's such a stupid way to do business. And I guarantee you're going to see more incidents like we had where players take,
matters into their own hands.
Exactly.
Well, and you look at something like college football, and I don't think college football gets everything right, but you look at targeting. Targeting is not about intent. Targeting is about the action. And I agree with you. I think the NHL needs to start ruling on the action. And like you said, weigh intent in the consequences, but rule on the action, because you're not going to change the sport. You're not going to change the way players think about how they're playing the game. And you're not going to make this game safer if you are weighing intent. You're taking in way too many things into account that you have no idea about. You've got to evaluate the action. And that's just not happening with any consistency with the Department of Player Safety at all.
No. One last plus I want to get to, Ann. real quick, and that's to Andrew Brunette
Come on.
on a lineup decision that I think maybe deserves a little bit more credit. So Cody Glass with a healthy scratch against Montreal. And I think everybody's first reaction was, oh God, Cody Glass is the latest victim of quote unquote reset, quote unquote. Well, we just need him to kind of refocus and that kind of stuff that we've seen from some of these players. So Andrew Brunette was asked about Cody Glass not being in the lineup. And Andrew Brunette, this quote comes from Zach Gilchrist, just said Cody hasn't gotten traction all year. He's been hurt a few times. We got him in last night. Remember, the Maple Leafs Canadiens games were back-to-back. And they said he didn't want him to play the back-to-back. We want to make sure he's healthy. He's a little bit sore. So I think just a moment for him to kind of ease back into it. That I think is so smart from a coaching standpoint, Anne. And we've talked about Cody Glass just hasn't gotten a chance to build some consistency. And so Cody Glass comes back. Andrew Brunette is, also just like, oh, well, he easily could have gone, well, we need to get him some games under him, get him up to speed. So we're going to put him in on this back-to-back. Instead, he takes a step back and says, you know what? Like, let's play a marathon here. Like, let's run a marathon. Let's give him some time. Like, he got back into a game. That's good. He got his skates under him. Let's not play him again tonight and risk something going wrong. Let's get him back on the ice, and then let's give him what a standard sort of rest break would be for the Nashville Predators. Let's give him another day off, another day to, go through a morning skate without playing, another day to go through practice, and then he's ready to go for Philly.
Yeah.
I think that's so smart, and I think that's something that deserves some kudos from Brunette's end.
Yep, I agree. And I think you were right. Initial reaction was, oh my gosh. But when you hear the logic behind it, it really speaks to the fact that Andrew Brunette's playing a long game here.
Yeah, absolutely. That is going to do it on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Of course, on tomorrow's show, we will have recap from Preds versus Flyers, including our one word to describe the game. Stay tuned for that, and be sure to listen and subscribe, whether you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform or watching us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. We will see you tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Predators. Take care.